So what's our response to all that God revealed and all that we encounter in Scripture and in tradition? Faith. Now you may have heard faith described as kind of like taking a leap, the leap of faith. And some people talk about it as a blind leap. It's not a blind leap because it makes a whole lot of sense. All right, this is not illogical, the stuff we believe in. But I'll tell you what, it's beyond our ability to fit it all into our little heads. So it does require that leap. And at the heart of any leap, you got to have trust. Like whether you're leaping into faith or you're leaping out of an airplane. I am about to leap into the stratosphere. But you know what? I'd be stupid to do that if I didn't trust the person who packed this for me. If I didn't trust the fact that the parachute was going to open and not have any holes in it, you know, and that it would bring me safely to the ground. Same is true with faith. Now, how do we get that kind of trust in God? I know, by studying every possible theory about God and learning everything there is to know about Him, by becoming geniuses and ruling out every opinion to the contrary and narrowing it down to the Trinity, Jesus Christ, Scripture, tradition, the church, boom, I got it all figured out. It all fits into my little head. No. Look, if faith was just a topic we get to learn, then yeah. Then enough knowledge would necessarily produce faith. It would lead us there, boom, you're there. You have faith because you get it. But the end goal of faith isn't just a topic, it's a person. See, if God said, hey, listen, here's a book, learn some facts about me, here's some rules, follow them, boom, we'll call it even. I'll do my God thing, you do your human thing, we'll call it a day. It would have been so simple. He threw us a massive curveball. He gave us His entire life. So all He wants back is everything. Faith isn't just about your smarts, it's about your hearts. It's about our whole response of our whole self to God who gave His whole self to us. Kind of like marriage. You got your checklist. I have my checklist with my wife. Beautiful, really nice person, holy, got all these things and it all makes sense. And you better have good reasons behind the person you choose to leap into marriage with. But knowing all those things about her, that wasn't necessarily going to produce a marriage. You know, eventually I had to get to the point where all those things led me to the threshold. But I had to man up at some point, produce a ring and say, will you marry me? See, I give myself now to what I know enough of. The same is true with jumping out of a plane. I could prepare, I could trust the people, but you know what? Eventually you're standing on the edge, you got to jump out. The same is true with faith. Yeah, we got all the reasons. We're going to explain throughout this entire program why this stuff makes a lot of sense. But just like with marriage, just like with getting to the door of a plane, all the reasons to trust can only lead you so far. Eventually, you got to jump over that threshold. That's what faith's about, where the will pushes the intellect to accept, to submit to assent to things that are bigger than the human mind, that we couldn't possibly take it all in. And we say yes to God. And that's the moment when joy is born. That's the moment when hope is born. Why? Because even if we're falling through the stratosphere of life, when we have faith, our feet are firmly grounded in the most important realities. The reality that life is not an accident, that God had you in mind before He breathed life into this universe, that even through difficult times, He's got a purpose for you, and that your end is eternal glory. I look at saints like Josephine Bakita, who went through so much difficulty, so much hardship in her life. When she was a little girl, she was sold into slavery. She was traded. She was beaten so badly, she actually forgot her name. And she grew up into adulthood. She was freed. She became a Catholic Christian. She became a religious sister who was renowned for her love and gentleness, despite all the hardships she went through, all the difficulties. You know how she summed up her life? With these words. She said, I am definitely loved. And no matter what happens to me, I am awaited by this love. And so my life is good. Why? Because her feet were firmly planted in the most important realities. Faith. That's where joy comes from. That's where the power comes from to live life to the full. You know, just like there's certain things I have to do to get ready to skydive, there's certain things you could do and have to do to grow in your faith. You know, the most basic one is that you have to ask for faith. Faith is a gift from God. Now, it's not a gift that He just chooses to give a couple people. It's a gift that's like the sunshine, man. It's pouring down on everybody at all times. But you got to ask for it. One beautiful scripture that shows a man asking for faith. He encountered Jesus, and he said, Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief. So ask for the great gift of faith. Thanks, man. Another way to grow in faith is to pray. So guys, this isn't really rocket science. You have to spend time talking to God. Spend time reading scripture and just soaking your brain in the stuff it was made for. I mean, it's the owner's manual for your life. Spend time reading it. Another beautiful saying I once heard is that if you want to love God, act like you love God. So if you want to grow in faith, I'd say the same thing. Act like you have faith. Talk to other people about Jesus. Love and serve them. Act like those saints that maybe you chose for your confirmation patron. So be known that way, and everybody, even people who aren't that into it, are going to encourage you in your faith. And how do you lose faith? Well, just like with any relationship, you can do things that destroy and erode that relationship. You could sin. St. Thomas Aquinas said that sin darkens the intellect. The intellect is where your faith is. All right? So basically, sin makes you stupid. Look at any experience of your life. When you're really locked into a certain sin, you don't really get it, and people are trying to break through. It's like, what? Yeah, it makes it like a brick wall around your head and around your heart. So you could sin. How else can you lose faith? You can be shallow. I mean, if you spend 3 hours a day in Facebook, another 3 hours a day on Xbox, I'll tell you what, your mind and heart are not going where they were made to go. They're not living in a deeper level. You're not experiencing life to the full. Now, I'm not saying Xbox and Facebook are sins. And I didn't have to deal with that, by the way, growing up. When I was a kid, we didn't have Facebook. We had something called real life. It was awkward. If you wanted to unfriend someone in real life, it required a conversation. But anyway, you get my point. It's not a sin to just, have that in moderation. But if you spend hours a day on that stuff, it crowds God out of our hearts, minds, and lives. And finally, we can lose faith by rejecting it. Yeah, you see, atheism, rejection of God, I know atheists will make it sound like they're all smart and they're atheists because they've concluded there's no God. But they can't prove there's no God. Nor can they give you an answer for why, if there's no God, there's anything at all. Just like people of faith, atheists make a choice too, to reject God. They take a leap of faith, but instead of landing in hope, they land in darkness. So like with any relationship, guys, there are certain things you could do to grow in it. There are certain things you could do to destroy faith. And I want to leave you with this. Faith is not a one-time leap, a one-time decision. It's a lifelong decision. It's a daily decision, just like in any relationship, just like in marriage. And there's some times when a decision is difficult with any relationship to stay faithful. And the same is true with God. There's certain times where you're suffering in life and it's really difficult and you don't get it, and all you can see is your pain and suffering. You don't see all the reasons that led you to faith. You don't see all the things that strengthened your faith over the years. But in those times, you know what you could do so that life still holds together? You keep making the one choice to believe. St. Augustine once said, I don't understand that I might believe. I believe that I might understand. And you know why else I believe? So that I can have life and have it to the full.